At 67, my own son started charging me rent to live in the house I'd paid on for 40 years. My name's Peggy. I stood behind a fabric store counter in Dayton, Ohio, most of my life, cutting cloth off the bolt, ringing up zippers and thread, 41 years of it, my feet flat as pancakes by the end. I raised my son Todd in a little 2-bedroom over on Ferndale, the house my husband Harold and I bought the year Todd started school, the one I made every payment on after Harold passed. About 3 years ago, Todd sat me down at my own kitchen table and told me I ought to sign the house over to him. For protection, he said, so the nursing home couldn't come take it if I got sick, so the taxes wouldn't eat me alive. He had it all typed up. He'd thought about it, he said, because he loved me. And I signed it, because that's the thing you do. You trust your child. The day the paper cleared, the house that had my name on it for decades became his. A few months in, he handed me an envelope. Rent, he was charging me rent, to sleep in my own back bedroom. When I got behind, he raised it. He called it protection. Then he billed me for it. I didn't scream at him. I didn't call a lawyer and go to war with my only boy. I did the one thing he never saw coming. I took what was left in my own account, in my own name, and bought a one-way ticket to a place called Roxas City in the Philippines. What happened after I got there still surprises me to this day. I picked Roxas for a reason. That'll sound thin, but it's the truth. There was a girl who used to come into the fabric store, Marisol, a nurse's aide, always buying cheap cotton to sew scrub tops for her cousins back home. And she'd talk about where she came from. A quiet fishing city, she said. Crabs and prawns coming in off the boat, still moving, nobody in a hurry about anything. She said, Miss Peggy in the province, they don't leave the old one sitting by a window. That line stuck to me like a burr, so when the floor went out from under me, that's the direction I went. 67 years old, one suitcase, and a folder of papers I was scared to lose. Flying halfway around the world to a town I'd only seen in a phone picture over a bolt of cotton. I'll be honest with you, because I told myself I would. That first night, I sat on the edge of a rented bed, sure I'd made the worst mistake of my whole life. The heat was the first thing. I came out of the little airport at night, and it just laid on me, wet and heavy, like somebody draped a warm, wet towel over my head. I could smell salt, and I could smell cooking smoke. Somebody grilling something down the road. The tricycles going by were loud in a way I wasn't ready for. Little motorbikes with a metal sidecar welded on. Engines buzzing like a swarm. Headlights coming at you from every direction. I'd booked a room for a month off the internet, sight unseen, over a little eatery. The man who drove me from the airport talked the whole way, and I couldn't follow a word. And I sat in the back gripping that folder of papers to my chest, and it came down on me all at once. The size of the thing I'd done. An old woman alone. No husband, no home. 10,000 miles from anybody who knew my name. And the boy I raised had put me out of the house I bought. I got up the stairs to that room, and there was a ceiling fan turning slow and a gecko on the wall the size of my finger. I sat down and cried the way I hadn't let myself cry in front of Todd. Peggy, I thought, you old fool. What have you gone and done? In the morning I'll find a way home, and then it hit me sitting there. Home to what? There was no home to go home to. He'd put his name on it, and I think that ugly little fact is the only thing that kept me from turning around. Those first couple of weeks were harder than any brochure would ever tell you. The heat did not let up, not once, not even at night. I was wet through by the time I finished my coffee. My ankles swelled up like bread dough. The power would just quit, brownout they call it here. The whole street going dark at once, and I'd sit in the black with the fan dead and the sweat running down my spine, listening to the geckos clicking. And out past the roofs, a boat motor puttering out before dawn. I got sick off something. I ate at a roadside stall and spent 2 days. I'd rather not describe. I got turned around walking and couldn't find my own way back. One afternoon I stood in the middle of a public market, with fish laid out on ice on every side of me, more kinds than I knew existed, and couldn't find one single thing I recognized to make a supper out of. I just cried, standing there in the wet and the smell of it, and started to wonder if all I'd done was trade one kind of being, thrown out for a hotter, farther kind. At least back home, the throwing out came in a language I could understand, and I missed things I never expected to miss. I missed being cold, if you can believe that. A real gray Ohio morning, a cardigan, my breath fogging at the bus stop. There was a lilac bush by the back steps on Ferndale that Harold planted our first spring there, and every May the whole yard smelled like it, and I'd prop the kitchen window open just to catch it while I did the dishes. 40 years of that lilac, and now it belonged to Todd, or to whoever Todd sells it to. Some other woman will do her dishes with that window open and never know a thing about the man who planted it. That's the one that would come at me sideways, at odd hours, not the furniture, not the rooms, the lilac. And Lord forgive me, I even missed Todd, or the boy I thought I'd raised. I was so angry I could have spit, and I missed him too. Both those at the same time is a hard way to lie awake. I've got to be honest about how far down it went before it came back up, because I don't want to jump straight to the warm part and cheat you out of the true one. There was a stretch, 2-3 weeks in, where I hardly left that room. The newness had worn off, and what was under it was just the ache. I'd wake before light in that hot dark and grieve that house like it was a person who'd died on me. I'd walk it room by room, in my head, the way you keep touching a sore tooth, the kitchen where I signed his paper, the closet door where I'd penciled his height every birthday, the spot on the carpet where Harold's chair used to sit. All of it his now. I don't think I ever understood till those nights that a house isn't lumber and pipe. It's the last place the people you loved are still in some way standing in the doorway. I'd handed it over because he said the word protection and I was his mother, and I wanted to believe him. I broke down one of those nights and called Todd. It was morning, his time. I told myself I only wanted to hear his voice. I think what I wanted really was for him to say he was sorry, and he didn't, and I didn't ask him to. So we just sat there breathing at each other over 10,000 miles. He asked, was it safe over there? He asked real careful, like he was testing ice with his toe, whether I'd figured out my long-term plan yet, which is his way of saying the money, mother. I told him the fish was good. He told me the kids were fine. Neither one of us said the true thing. I counted the quiet 20 seconds of nobody saying anything. I count when I'm hurting, an old cashier's habit. Then he said he had to go. I set the phone down and felt lonelier than I had the whole trip. Because it is one thing to be lonely among strangers and another to be lonely with your own child right there on the line breathing. I didn't call him again for a good long while. But slowly, so slowly, I almost missed it happening. The street turned into people instead of just noise. First one was the woman I bought my breakfast from. Her name was Rosa, but the whole lane called her Manang Rosa. Manang's a respect word, like saying older sister or ma'am, something in there. She ran a little churro down the block, an eatery where the food's already cooked and sitting out in trays under glass, and you just point at what you want. Churro means point. You point your way to a plate. Rosa was maybe 60, built low to the ground, a scar on her forearm from the fryer, and a laugh that started somewhere down in her belly. She had enough English to needle me, and she needled me good. Miss Peggy, why you sweating, huh? You sit under the fan. She'd set down a plate of rice and some little fried fish and a coffee so sweet it made my teeth sing, and she'd hardly let me pay full for it, and I didn't have to talk much. And neither did she. First time in weeks I felt like a person and not a problem. Now I've got to tell you about the day I made a pure fool of myself in front of that woman, because I still can't buy fish there without her bringing it up. I still didn't have the money straight in my head. The coins all a mystery to me, and I'd taken to holding out a fistful and letting folks pick, which I know you're not supposed to. So one morning, I wanted to try cooking for myself. And I went down toward the water at Bebe, where they haul the bankas up on the sand, those long skinny fishing boats with the bamboo outriggers out the sides like a water bug. A man had live blue crabs in a basket still moving, claws tied off with grass string, and I pointed at the basket, meaning I wanted the price of one, but he thought I meant I'd buy the whole thing. The entire day's catch. He lit right up and started tying it shut for me. I'm shaking my head. No, just one, holding up one finger. And I got so flustered I dropped my whole handful of coins in the wet sand. This poor man's down on his knees in the surf, picking my money out of the tide for me, and I'm about to cry, standing there with my one crab. Manon Rosa, who'd walked down for something or other, saw the whole sorry business. She didn't quite know what to do with me at first. Gave this nervous little laugh, because, what do you even do? Then she took the coins out of my hand and counted them slow into the crab man's palm herself. This is the 20. This is the 5. Like I was a child, an old woman who ran a cash register 41 years, being counted for like a kindergartner. I never felt so useless in my life. She still says it, Miss Peggy. You want I hold the money. Huh. You want I count? There was the tricycle business, too. I'd walked too far one hot noon and had to give in and flag one down. Folded myself into that little sidecar, a tin box about the size of a wheelbarrow, and got stuck. My knees up around my ears, and a whole line of school kids on the corner watched the driver tip the rig and pour me back out onto the curb like the last bit of ketchup out of the bottle. I have never heard children laugh that hard before, or, since I laughed too, eventually. Took me a block, but I did. Then there was the driver I ended up keeping. Cowboy, that was his nickname. Half the men there seemed to go by Boy or June or something similar. Boy figured out my knees before I ever said a word. Saw me wince folding into that sidecar, and after that, without making a thing of it, he'd pull up so the low step was right at the curb and hold the frame steady while I climbed down. Then sit there. Engine off till he saw me get in the door safe before he'd drive off. Never charged me a peso extra, never mentioned it. He said a thing to me once when I got weepy trying to thank him. He just shrugged and said, "Ma'am, the old one cannot fall." Then who I bring around, huh? That's Boy O, and he was just about wild for the cockfighting. The sabong, he'd go on and on about some rooster he had money down on, and I never once followed a word of it. Just nodded along. That's just Boy for you. If today's video has you wondering whether a life like this is really possible, you're far from alone. Every year, more Americans, men and women both, are discovering that starting over doesn't have to mean starting from nothing. Still, somebody gathers the true stories of 7 Americans who left rising costs and financial pressure behind, along with the feeling that life had quietly passed them by. Inside are the real numbers, too. Apartments starting around $280 a month, doctor visits for $12, some living comfortably on around $1,150 a month. No hype, no pitch, just honest budgets and lessons that could save you months of research and costly mistakes. If a simpler, more affordable life overseas has ever crossed your mind, the link's below. $27 for the instant PDF. Your next chapter could begin tonight. Now I've got to tell you about Nanabelle, because she's the one who reached in and pulled something back out of me that I thought was long gone. Nana means mother. Near enough, and everybody at the fish landing called her that. She sold crabs and shells at the market off Beebe Road, a spot maybe 3 feet wide, a little scale with the paint worn clean off it, and a way of sorting crabs by feel almost in the dark. She was 7